What's up, y'all? Y'all are listening to Living Corporate's flagship podcast. If you didn't know, Living Corporate helps organizations build employee engagement and market trust through data analytics and data transformation, our e-learning platform, and brand marketing storytelling. We're so excited for you to be here today. The conversation you're about to hear is going to connect the dots between employee experience and go-to-market effectiveness. If you're not ready, get ready. Here we go. Preston Mitchum, long-term friend of the show, third time being on Living Corporate in the past 6 years. How you doing, baby?
I'm doing good. I feel like I've just been running around lately, if I'm being honest. But you know what? Par for the course sometimes. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Look, I got to get right to it. You know, it's interesting because you and I have had several discussions about, and frankly, I think a lot of your content, it really does a really great job of engaging and critically analyzing the intersection of class, black elitism, homophobia, the patriarchy. I'm curious, because when I first met you, first of all, you was always that nigga, but when I first met you, you was not on Martha's Vineyard reality show.
Right.
You was not a celebrity, right? How do you navigate and also as I think about you, one of the biggest for me anyway, as I watched the show, what really got a lot of traction was your critique of black excellence. So you're still very much who you are, but now you're in these very black elitist spaces, exclusive spaces.
Yeah.
How do you, and I just saw you the other day, you was on a carpet, you're right, you hobnobbing with celebrities. How do you navigate your exposure and your time in these spaces while at the same time being critical of them spaces?
That is such a good question. You know, I first have to kind of realize that my journey intentionally was not to be in these spaces, right? It was not the design, if you will, that I desired to be, kind of motivated myself to be in. Certainly I knew as an attorney, I already had an entry point into those spaces, though, there are different kind of attorneys, but I live in DC. Many people are attorneys in DC. And so the spaces are kind of normal, so to speak. But I think obviously it's very different to be cast on a Bravo reality show because that obviously is an entry point into a lot of other spaces with people who have incredible amounts of wealth, or at least perceived wealth, or at the very least, folks who, people want to be around all the time, have millions of followers, et cetera.
Sure.
I think I've just always promised myself that whatever space I was going to be in and occupy, I was going to be fully myself. And I know that's probably easy to say and hard to do in many instances, but for me, it wasn't. For me, it isn't. For me, at the very, it's hard to describe, right? Because I think it's just one of those things you have to just do. So when I made my point to be on Bravo TV, Summer House, Martha's Vineyard, and I kept just hearing the phrase Black excellence. I had already spoken on social media around my disdain for that phrase. I had already, spoken at length in speeches and in panel discussions why that phrase actually no longer, probably never did, but serve us. And it actually is exclusive. And in the worst of ways, frankly, right? Exceptionalist in the worst of ways, because it, I don't think the goal is to tear down a group of Black people. It's certainly to build up Black folks. But it's who are you leaving out as you're building up these sect of Black folks? And I promised myself, if I ever had the opportunity to talk about this on a major stage, then I was going to do so. Now, Bravo and producers could have decided to not put that in, right? They could have fundamentally said, we're not going to air that. That's going to be too political, too conversational, not dramatic enough, et cetera. But I do think it was an introduction to the audience, but also to who I actually am, which is someone who's going to disrupt spaces, even spaces that it may seem that I'm comfortable in, but spaces where I'm going to have you thinking about a lot of different things all the time. It's that's just one example where I was we probably look the fuck crazy actually saying cheers to Black excellence while cheersing from a coffee mug. But, let's just actually get to it. So when I'm in those spaces, right, I'm not just going to let people get away with stuff, right? Certainly I won't be the party pooper that's going to ruin the entire discourse every single time I enter a space, because that's also not a fun person to be.
Right.
But it is if you're saying something that I can recognize as incredibly offensive, Like, it's kind of like me being around a white person and them saying nigga and me not saying nothing. That will never happen. Like, it will never happen that if I heard a white person say that, I'm not going to interrupt that space. I don't care where I am. If I heard a gay person, or if I heard a straight person, black or otherwise, say fag, I'm never going to not interrupt that space, right? So I do think that there are certain things for me that I'm automatically going to interrupt. And maybe that makes me unpopular in some spaces, but at least I am comfortable with sleeping well at night.
And you know what I realized, Preston, is, you know, as you continue to grow and do your thing in like influencer type spaces, frankly, as you climb the ladder of any different space, whether it be corporate, professional, some blend of both, influencer, whatever it is, a lot of people that you look at like from afar that look like they are really up, or that they look like, or that they may even like present as really complex or impressive. They don't really be up like that, and they don't be impressive like that. And it's like
at all
really jarring when you experience it in real time. It's a lot of people, you know, they be on on TV and stuff, but they still like they be in debt or like don't have. So
can I say this though? You know what's interesting?
Give it to me.
I don't think I ever expected folks on TV, reality stars, or even like actors and actresses to be anything other than themselves, right? Mm-hmm. And that means like I don't expect them to be brilliant, right? I expect them to be, I try to expect them to be normal most of the time. And because that helps me realize that when they fail at something that I deeply believe that they're good at, that they're just human. And at the same time, I also don't want to give people too much, right? Like there are some reality stars who I've met who I'm so unimpressed with. And I'm like, and I see people running to them and screaming and I'm like, okay, cool, right? Because there's something that people get from them that I just don't see, right? I just don't see it for. I just don't see the intellect, the shifting of the worlds, and that's just something I want from people when they have big platforms. Some people when people have big platforms, they want fashion, they want makeup, to me, that is not impressive. Like that, for me, right? That is a very intentional statement. And, for me, and frankly, unfortunately, it kind of reminds me of the criticism. Well, I criticize Tyler Perry all the time, but it reminds me of a really great article. I really wish I remember the author, but the author's point was effectively like Tyler Perry has no incentive to make good art, right? Because his bad art sells so well that obviously people don't care enough. It's like the same expression I give for like reality TV stars, actors and actresses, among others. There's no incentive for them to be politically savvy. There's no incentive for them to actually be quote unquote smart or quote unquote intellectual or want to change the world. Why? Because people clearly don't care if they do, right? They want their makeup, they want their music, they want their rap, and go. Right. And maybe that's a good thing, right? Like maybe that is not the most horrendous thing in the world, but because sometimes when people get to talking, you kind of wish they shut up.
For real.
So I get it. But I just want people to want more. And I want those artists and those reality TV stars to want more for themselves as well.
It's interesting you bring that up in terms of political savviness, because I think it's really easy to get caught up in, and now look, I'm about to say some stuff. I'm not painting.
Go ahead.
I'm not painting. I don't want to paint everybody at Martha. I'm not shading Martha's Vineyard. Okay. I don't have no beef with no particular person, but I do take umbrage with like the same black leaders and people who do not lift as they climb throughout the year. Then all of us or who don't have budget to work with vendors and stuff like that. All of a sudden you see them popping up at Martha's Vineyard with gold chalices and super expensive wine and all these trinkets and stuff. But I know a lot of them don't be doing nothing. Right. And so it's tough. Yeah. It's tough in real time. Like to your point, even around even these phrases around Black excellence, it's like rarely ever do I see like, so when I think about Black excellence, I think about Preston Mitchum reaching back to somebody who got their GED and helping them go get X, Y, and Z. I see Zach or Living Corporate platforming somebody that does not speak the King's English, but is brilliant and giving them space to shine and grow. It's literally reaching back and helping others. But so often we talk about Black excellence, we're talking about designer brands, getting certain awards, being seen, faux luxury.
Right.
and or white acceptance, right? We're not really talking about elevating. It rarely ever intersects in a class. There's no class dynamic, or rather, it is a class dynamic, in that it's highly exclusive.
Yeah. Or black acceptance, but standards that were created by white people largely.
There you go. That's a bar.
I mean, like, it's interesting, right? I just came back from Martha's Vineyard just from relaxation, right? Like, not to film. And it is a beautiful place. Like, it's interesting because all of your points are correct. And I think it's such a beautiful place that I think many people have to go if they can afford it and if it's accessible, to experience at least once in their life, because it really, I'll tell you this, as someone who grew up in the hood, who didn't really know about anything related to Martha's Vineyard, probably until like 2017, and that was when I was in DC at that point already for like 6 years at that time. And I was like, what is this place that my friends, my newer friends, frankly, in DC keep talking about? Folks who already had a little bit of access to things, who were already involved in some spaces, who were deep in D9 life. And I was just like, I've never heard of this place. Let me actually look up this place. And it seemed beautiful, right? Like, it was like, wow. Now I looked at the prices and I was like, all right, I'm about to be living with 15 other people for a few days.
Right.
Because it is really expensive. But, it's fascinating, right? And at the same time, you have that beauty. You do feel different when you're there. It really is like a bunch of Black folks it's just no drama. It's really chill. You have these beautiful panel discussions. Like, it really is great. And I, at least, start to feel guilty because I recognize, right, that there is a certain category, class, what have you, of Black folks who will be able to maintain and be in this space, right? You do have the people who are the presidents of all these organizations, right? This time around, quite frankly, I came because I was paid to go, not only as like someone formerly now on reality TV, but also like someone who used to work at an organization that was partnering in an event, right? So it is, you do recognize, like, I really just hate that people can't be honest about this, right? It's the very reason why, when our show kicked off season 1, a lot of people, of course, there were mixed reactions, right? There were many people who were excited because they heard of it, they wanted to see about it. And there were some people who were really upset, right? They wanted to protect the legacy, the space of the vineyard, right? Because it is a space that was really, I mean, it's a white space year round. But like in August, especially, it is a Black space. Pardon me, it's a Black space. And people love it and want to protect and honor that. But I always challenge people about that too, because I'm like, I agree with you that this is something to honor, to hold, to have. And who are we keeping out as we're doing all of that? Right? Because the price already keeps a lot of people out, and a lot of Black folks out anyway.
Off the muscle,
so
Preston.
Yeah. So when you tell me like you're trying to like make sure people honor it and protect it, I'm like, against who?
Yeah.
Like, because I'm like, it's not against white people. They're there year round, right? They're there often. And so I'm like, it's to me, it's unfortunately, I believe, unintentionally, likely, hopefully, a statement of saying this has to be a certain category of Black people to maintain being here. Right. And that is something I can never get with. I don't care if we go to season 15 of the show. Like that is something to me that is so elitist, exceptionalist, exclusive, that it makes me not feel invited because I know I'm not that group of people, right? I may, thank God, through support of chosen family, et cetera, be an attorney now. But baby, this wasn't always the case. 99% of my family still cannot enjoy vacation on the vineyard.
Right.
So it's hard for me to really, sit with that. Because I know people, they were like, my family has spent generations here. We've had a home here since, 50 years ago. And I'm like, that is a beautiful thing. Know how rare that is. And I pray that that's a rare thing.
Right.
So it's tough.
I think that we have to, I think there's an opportunity, and I get it's deeply uncomfortable, but to engage the idea or the thought that so much of what we call Black excellence is really anti-Black, right? Like, and so look, I'm not trying to harbor on that though, because we got you here for a good time, not a long time. All right. So you recently tweeted, and look, we're recording this before this next election. You recently tweeted about the fact that Black folks is everybody's scapegoat, right? And I believe, and you correct me if I'm wrong, the context of that is around the positioning of Kamala Harris as our next Democratic president, She is the presumptive nominee. And we have seen ongoing discussions around the genocide in Gaza committed by Israel. And there goes my Apple ratings. I'm about to be in trouble. It's whatever. Like, whatever, Preston.
I mean, it's also honest.
It's the truth, right? So, and we've seen like rightful critique by activists, and then also activists by social, those kind of on the side, but multiple voices around like, hey, this is wrong. But then we're also seeing now some infighting and divisive language around the critiquing of Black folks. Some of them activists, some of them not, who are saying, hey, Kamala is, out of these two options, the better choice to vote for a myriad of reasons. And then we're seeing some activist groups, some Palestinian activist groups, or those who purport themselves to be such, right? Because I'm not going to say they even are, which is a broader conversation, saying, hey, actually, if you decide to vote for Kamala Harris, you cannot be in support of this cause. Like, talk to me about, again, I saw your tweet. I amplified it. Talk to me about your position and your thoughts here on that as we're seeing this unfurl in real time.
This has been one of the most frustrating things I've seen unfold in a while, honestly. And at first, I was trying to figure out the prettiest language to use to not offend anyone. And then I just didn't care. Like, I'm just like, I have to say something right now because this is actually wild, the conversation that's happening and kind of the direction of the conversation. Because you have two communities at this point, and I'm like, and Black folks, Palestinians, and frankly, in some instances, Black Palestinians, who I think are trying to figure this out because we usually support each other, right? We usually are aligned on the same side, right? I still think back to the days where there was, the heightened, police violence again, I should say, in 2020 with the murder of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, et cetera. And Palestinians were tweeting us around milk and what to do to flush out, like, pepper spray, et cetera, in your eyes. And then naturally, like, right, the uptick of violence after October, especially against Palestinians, we've seen Black people really tweeting in defense of Palestinian folks. I just think there's such a losing battle what's happening right now. And that's something that actually really confuses me. And it feels pretty, like, targeted in a way.
Yeah.
But I've seen so many, like, tweets, things on TikTok around people almost blaming Black folks and telling Black folks to not vote for Vice President Harris. And if we do, we're not really supportive of Palestinian folks, or we don't really care about the issue. Which is heartbreaking, right? Because it assumes that there's no other reason why many of us are not voting for Vice President Harris, right? Like, as someone who was not a champion for Vice President Harris in 2019 and 2020, and I was very supportive of Elizabeth Warren.
Same.
I'm like, you are not finding a Kamala Harris stand in me. Like, that is not what you're finding. Though I don't think she's the worst. I don't think she's the best in overall, right, as a policymaker. But I think right now we need her, right? Like, there is, I've worked with her office many times when she was a senator, and and she's done some great things. She's also done some things for me that I've not found supportive or I don't agree with. And that's going to be true with whatever policymaker you identify with or you ultimately vote for. And I just don't understand what's different now than it has ever been in any other course of our presidency or the election. I think what's incredibly frustrating is that I worked in federal policy and in U.S. foreign policy during all 4 years of the Trump-Pence administration, all 4 years. And when I tell you it was the worst that any of us have ever seen on a governance level and on an administrative level, we saw so many attacks. And one of the first attacks actually were on Muslim people, right? We're around the Muslim ban, right? That was one of the first attacks where ultimately got through because that administration pushed things so much that they were going to do things whether it was unlawful until it became lawful, right? So many attacks against LGBTQ plus folks, so many attacks on gender affirming care, so many attacks on reproductive health rights and justice. I mean, you name it. And so some of us remember those 4 years very well. Some of our families remember those instances very, very well. And we just don't want to see that again. right? Because that was just like them playing JV.
Right.
Now they know how to play varsity,
Right.
right? And they're going to make sure that they do these efforts for the next century to come.
Right.
And so I really want, there's a lot of emotions, understandable emotions. There's a lot of righteous indignation, understandable and rightful. I just need us to kind of breathe for a second and just stop blaming each other for what white supremacy is causing.
Yeah.
Stop blaming each other. Right. Like, it's almost like it's winning. Like, it's like, I don't see how this instance is, how anyone is blaming Black folks or Palestinian folks. Like,
that's the part.
It just doesn't make sense to me.
And so that's why I'm curious. Like, it feels kind of COINTELPRO-ish, right?
Yeah. Like, it's like they're directing these efforts because, like, we would have ordinarily never targeted each other and been enemies of each other. And so
it's weird.
I just can't understand what's happening. All I know is, I tell people this all the time. For my friends who are Palestinian who tell me they're not voting for her or not voting at all, I do not push back. I
ain't got nothing to say.
Imagine. Like, it's like, yes, nothing. I say, but when you try to tell Black folks, the Black folks who are largely the most oppressed group in the United States of America,
right,
that when they see a glimmer of hope in someone, in a Black person, when they see a glimmer of hope in the types of policies that can be passed, or at least the type of policies that can be blocked because of who is and who's not president, it's like, how dare you, actually? How dare you then get the right to tell me that my vote, trying to protect the little bit of rights that we do have, is a bad thing?
Right.
Like, I find it really offensive, and I'm just not sure how we got here.
No, I mean, I'm right there with you. 100% of everything you said. I look at it, I'm like, this just feels really strange. And I'm also, I pride myself in talking to a lot of different folks. Is Preston, I'm like, look, like, I do not know what it is like. Like, if I was to go online and see people blown to pieces and then be like, oh, that's my uncle, that's my cousin, that's my distant relative over, like, that is a different type of brutal trauma that I have not experienced. So if somebody or like people in the uncommitted movement say, hey, no, we're really not going to vote, then you know what? I receive that. I respect that because I'm not, I am in no way equipped or worthy of talking, of challenging that at all. Like, respect. To your point, it's also like, okay, out of these two options, especially if I'm in a swing state,
right?
If I have the ability to impact, if I have the ability to reduce harm,
right,
then do I not have a responsibility to reduce harm? If I have, if I have the ability, especially if I know that there's a candidate that I at least have a chance to pressure to shift things and shift policy or make different decisions, do I not have an obligation to do that?
Yeah, I'm just tired of marginalized communities being blamed for the options that we're presented with. Right? Like, it's the wildest thing. Like, whether we like it or not, we have a two-party system, and we will in our lifetimes. That is just
the way it
is going to happen.
Yeah.
I just need us to be honest about that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you can't then blame these communities for doing the best that they can do within the systems that we have.
Yep.
And it actually breaks my heart. Like, it doesn't even make me mad at this point. Like, it is just like, how did we get here? I just don't know. And you're right. Like, it feels very like planted and targeted. And it's just frustrating that we're falling victim to it.
Like, who put these bricks here? Like, who put these fireworks here? Like, I don't understand. Like, it's just very odd. So look.
Yeah. Because our relationships are going to be expected to turn and blossom after this.
Right.
And now there's such a divide. I don't even know what that's going to look like.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, like, I always appreciate having you on. You know, I feel like another part of, again, your brand, first of all, Preston is a complex person. We're all complex human beings. That's just the aspect of being a person on this earth if you're not like an NPC. So, like, what I really appreciate about your personality is you like a little bit of mess, like healthy mess, though. Not like, so I'm going to be a little messy. Like, talk to me about, you know, and your time on the reality show, like in your work, right, were there any elements on the show where you really legitimately was heated about something that wasn't on some scripted stuff, like where you were like, no, I'm really, I'm like, I'm really mad.
Well, I'll say this too, because I will say I do love to kind of demystify reality TV a lot because nothing is scripted. Like, and I think it's about nothing is scripted. There's a difference between scripted and produced, though.
Okay, give it to me.
And I think right. So like we will absolutely give you everything that we've got, right? I think that is the difference between that and then it coming out on the back end the same way we gave it.
Okay,
right? Because things are produced, they're edited, right? So like, but like what we gave is what we gave.
Okay,
right?
okay.
Like, but sometimes what we gave, it fits into another producer's storyline, their version better, and that is kind of how it's produced on the back end, right, or edited on the back end. But there's nothing in front of us, right? There's nothing like anything that we're like supposed to say per se. Now, of course, people can guide your hand, being like, "Hey, how did you think about this? Go to that, talk to that person." But most of that is just trying to fill the gaps so it can make sense for the audience. So I will always say, truly, I don't think any of it is scripted. I do think it is produced, though, which is for some people maybe the same thing. For me,
it's not, because scripted is like, here's the thing you're supposed to say and go do this thing. Now, again, at the same time, different shows, whatever. It's like it might be like, hey, go do this thing over here. But where produced is like, hey, we're gonna take what you give us, and then depending on what we want to do, to your earlier point about your commentary on Black excellence, we're gonna then manipulate it a little bit, none or a lot, to get it is what it is we're trying to get. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Not to be clear though, that doesn't make it better. Because I think if you ask many reality stars, they think many producers produce a lot, which does make it feel less genuine. There definitely were a couple moments where I was really mad, frankly, and I'm grateful that at this age I'm able to kind of temper, for the most part, how I'm feeling until I feel like I'm able to express it in the correct way, or the way that just makes sense or that's productive. But I will say that what frustrated me probably more than anything second season was just kind of this manipulation around friendship, frankly, and like the lie of why certain friendships were not as close as where they were, and things that I couldn't really speak to because of NDAs, right? Like but there are moments that you get frustrated by, and you're like, I can't say anything because I'm an attorney and I'm not about to be sued by these people.
Right.
But also, that you're lying, right? And you know what? That's between you and your maker, your creator. I just know I'm good because I'm not a liar. So that was probably the one moment I was like, wow, you're blatantly lying about this because I can't say anything opposite.
Right.
And so that was one of the things that made me go, thank God, honestly, for this pause, because I need to figure out like the relationship or the lack thereof that I want to have with you after the cameras are put down.
To your point about the pause, and we'll do this and then we'll wrap it up. Is how did you feel as you found out news about the non-immediate renewal? And then as you think about your future, like, do you see yourself as like a reality TV star? Is that something you're trying to continue to do? And I'm giving you a 3-part question, but Preston Mitchum, you handle it.
No.
So first is, how did you feel about the pause? Just all the like whatever. 2, do you consider yourself like a reality TV star? Is this something you really want to pursue? And then 3, if so, what is it that you want? Do you have any desire of what you want people to get from you next, whatever stage you find yourself on in the future?
Love all 3 questions. So one, I was ambivalent about the news of the pause, right? Like I think it's because I expected it, right? And I'll be transparent here. I mean, I've talked to the execs about this. I thought they did a horrible job of marketing our show season 2. Arguably season 1 as well, frankly, but season 2, especially, right? People view marketing very differently. I view marketing from the aspect of who actually will be the audience for this show, right? So that means we do need more commercials. Especially as a newer show. That means you do need to have us on Black press a lot more than you would anything else. Like, I can't stand the Shade Room, but we needed to be actively in the Shade Room because of their engagement. That's just the reality of it. Right, the Shade Room, the neighborhood talks, etc. Like, we needed to actively be there. And then, so I already kind of expected it because I'm like, no network is going to spend a lot of money on a show and then not keep them around. But the opposite is true. Like, if there's not a lot of marketing in the budget or even a marketing department that's pushing forward the show, it may be because they don't see it happening for a long time, or at the very least may want to take a break, which the latter turned out to be true.
Mm-hmm.
I do have faith that it could come back. I really do, because there really was a lot of opportunities and moments of engagement that Bravo had for me in particular, I should say. But I was disappointed because I called out or called in the network early in our season about why doesn't it feel like we're having a lot of, like, The Valley, for example, is a show with an entire racist on it, right? And someone who's publicly made racist statements and transphobic statements.
Yes.
And was able to be on a brand new show.
Right.
Right. And we were just supposed to kind of be silent about that and be like, oh, they need another chance. Well, we've never messed up. So why are we not getting the same thing? And they had a commercial. One time, my fiance and I were literally watching TV on vacation all day, just relaxing.
Yes.
When I tell you, we saw one commercial from Summer House Martha's Vineyard, and the Valley had a commercial or two every single commercial break. And it was stuff like that. And our ratings were pretty similar.
Oh, wow.
So it was.
So you can't even play the metrics card.
Yeah. And even then, they had like ratings, maybe like 100,000 viewers more than us, but that was just live viewers, right? But you have to factor in the days of the week things come on, the time, like, and they were followed up by, their show was followed by Vanderpump Rules. So it was like, yes, you would naturally, because Vanderpump Rules is a popular show on Bravo.
People like watching.
So it was just very fascinating, like, as a very Black person, both in terms of my skin tone and like very much like who follows and pays attention to all of that. I was like, this does not seem, maybe I should say something, and I did. And what I thought was going to happen happened. So I think I was ambivalent because I was like, oh, I expected this. Thank goodness my life has been great before this. Thank goodness I can just go back to my company, right? All the work that I've already been doing. Like, it didn't feel, it was beautiful and it's amazing. And I pray it does come back and I pray I'm a part of it. And at the same time, I was like, I don't feel like I'm losing much in this moment.
I got you.
To your second question, I don't feel I'm a reality star. And I do feel like, I loved it. Like, it was a very weird, I think it's because, listen, Zach, let's just keep it real. I don't really care what people think about me.
I know,
like,
I love it.
Like, it's just like, you're going to love me or you're not going to love me.
And that's okay.
For a variety of reasons, right? It can be based on who I really am. It can be based on who you think I am because of editing. And all of it is okay. Right? Because I know exactly who I am. I know who my community is, my people are. I am loved. I am beloved by people. And so I'm okay with however that comes out in the back end, which is why I think I did well on reality TV, frankly. Like, I wasn't going to fight with people on the TV or off TV. Like, I'm not fighting with y'all. Like, you think my breath stink? You won. You think I'm cockeyed? You got it. Like, whatever you think about me is true. Whatever. And so I got very comfortable with that very quickly. And I think part of that also means that I do want to explore other things related to reality TV. My biggest hope and goal is that I'm on The Traitors season 4. Like, I love, love, love that show. And that is something that I really want to do. Leading to the third part of the question, part of the beauty of me being on reality TV is that there are just not many Black queer men on reality TV networks like the Bravos of the world, right? There are some examples, and I want to always give them their credit. But there aren't a lot. And I want to say this in the most gentle but honest way I can. None of them are like me, right? Like, I am going to unapologetically speak very loudly about the issues that I care about in ways that you just don't see from Black people, unfortunately, in reality TV, and Black queer people especially. Like, we're not largely tweeting about racism. We're not largely talking about Palestine. We're not largely, like, that's just not what's happening. And I pray that networks get more comfortable with casting people who are genuinely comfortable with talking about those issues and just being themselves. And I think there's like a fear factor, no pun intended, to another reality show, a fear factor that we can't be cast or seen. And so I really hope they take heed to that, because I think I'm an example of someone who has done both and did well in the reality TV space. Came out relatively, without harm.
Yeah.
And so I just really hope that they take a big look at that, because we're here. Like, not just me, like, many of us are here. and want to explore that and be a part of that community in space, but we just don't get the same chances.
So you wouldn't do Bad Boys Club, Martha's Vineyard?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I will say I still want to be on the bougie version of reality. You will not see me taking off my earrings to fight.
Bruh, I was watching
that is not it.
Bro, I was like, man, this is like really interesting TV. But I also enjoyed some of those characters. Anyway, look, Preston, it's always a pleasure. I know that you got stuff going on. I appreciate you making time to connect again. It's just dope thinking about the fact that you and I first connected, shoot, man, like 5-6 years ago. So I'm thankful that we're able to, you're still a friend of the show. Where can people learn more about you? Let me make sure I give you space to plug. We put stuff in the show notes, but give us that before we let you go.
Absolutely. So you can find me everywhere at Preston Mitchum or Preston.Mitchum. Website is PrestonMitchum.com. Definitely important to have merchandise. A lot of merchandise. If you go there now, you'll see like get out the vote messaging. You'll like shirts, hats, mugs. You'll see things related to my consulting firm. So like equity over equality or different things for that. And you'll also see some quotes from myself on the show, Summer House Martha's Vineyard. So PrestonMitchum.com/shop for all of your merchandising needs.
Come on now. All right. Preston, I'm saying Preston. Preston Mitchell. Been a great time. Enjoy you always. Love you, brother. We'll talk soon.
Love you, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Peace.
Living Corporate is a podcast by Living Corporate LLC. Our logo was designed by David Dawkins. Our theme music was produced by Ken Brown. Additional music production by Antoine Franklin for Musical Elevation. Post-production is handled by Jeremy Jackson. Got a topic suggestion? Email us at livingcorporatepodcast@gmail.com. You can find us online on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and living-corporate.com. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned.